Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast. We are back. Conclusion of round one. It's officially done. NRL season is back, and round one is complete. So, as per usual, we're going to be going through doing some Supercoach content in this one. I want to make this obviously a weekly thing, and whatever Supercoach content doesn't really get covered in my podcasts, a lot of it will be on the Instagram. So make sure you go and check that out. Same name as it is across all my socials at Chip and Chase Podcast. So check that out for sort of that visual content. And if you can't really just stick around for a full video podcast, then the Instagram is the place to be for that. But yeah, as I said, we'll just be going through this. Hopefully, looking to get a guest in to make it a bit more of a, a conversation, a back and forth thing, along the way. That's definitely the goal for it. But for now, we're just riding solo, just trying to get, as much out there as we can. So we're just going to, sort of structure this one. We'll start off by, just looking at how I went, look at how sort of everyone went, or just, have a chat about, the round that was, I suppose, round one, very difficult round to open the season. And then beyond that, we'll, talk about, trade plans and, captains, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, as you can see sort of on the screen here, if you are watching this one on YouTube, for those of you who are listening just on the audio podcast, if you want to see, sort of a bit more what's going on, this one is uploaded directly to YouTube, got the video format, got the face cam, got the webcam sort of going for this one. So if you're more interested in that, definitely head across to the YouTube to see that. If not, or for those of you who are already here listening on YouTube, we'll get right into it. You can see how I scored in round one up on the screen as we speak. Score of 827, a few updates kicked me down a little bit, but obviously not the best score, but it's, as everyone really knows, it was a torrid round one. Very, very difficult. So yeah, 827 puts me in the top 53%. Not very good at all. Ranked 74,852 out of 141,000 teams. So literally in the bottom half of all rankings at the moment. But am I worried? Not at all. Round one is always a difficult one. It's hard to sort of know where you are and what's going to happen. Nobody really knows what's going to play out, what teams are going to go good, what players are going to go good. It's all sort of a bit of luck of the draw. But I'm really happy with sort of how my team is structured after round one. I'm pretty happy with most of my team as a whole. We'll go in a bit more of that as we see fit. It says trades available here, 1 out of 45. I have already done my one trade for the round, but I'll go in and reverse that when we get in. It's a pretty straightforward trade. I think a lot of people will be looking to do it. But yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll sort of get into how the team shaped up. You can see here, this man right here, Terrell May, is the player we've brought in. So I'll quickly go back. We'll go undo changes and just confirm that. So this is how the squad lined up at the conclusion of round one. See all the points there, and if you're listening audio-wise, doesn't really matter. You've heard the full score from the round. A lot of duds, a lot of low scores, but as was round one, there was nothing that really went right. I thought, after the Vegas games, I was pretty like, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the sort of players I've brought in and how it's all gone, minus a few here and there. But, thank you for the people riding motorbikes not knowing I am recording. But yeah, so I won't read through it all because you're not really here to just listen to my team. And if you are, come along to the YouTube. Just you can have a look at it all visually. But a lot of tough games, of course, headlined by all of the guns of the round really going quite low. Besides your Tom Trebojeviches, really everyone went low. I managed to escape the Kalen Ponga captain, which I was really happy about, and then Hynes went 26 and Cleary went 36, who I ended up putting the armband on. So yeah, went actually worse. I would have been even better if I had thrown it on KP, but such is life. We can't fret about that. It was just a tough old round. But there are some positives to take out of my team. I'm really happy with how my center wings went. You see here the lowest score of 46 from Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. And if you watch the game or if you've seen the stats, you'd know that was all just base power. So I'm really happy with that score. Ramian as well, my other pod, 61. There was a try involved in that, but, considering I was going to go him or Greg Marju, who scored 59 and he's 200K more expensive. Yes, I know it was 59 in base power as well, but that's fine. Like, I've picked Ramian because I know he can score tries and I trust in his ability and I trust in his draw to start the season. So I'm pretty happy with that for now. It was a tough old game against the Warriors, very low scoring affair. And he went up against Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, missed a few tackles, so he's always going to miss a few, lose a few points there as well. Terrell May, everybody sort of went, and as they should, and I'm sure they'd be very, very happy with how he went. 67 punched out with no tries, and Ben Trebojevic, 72, played the full 80, I believe. I can't recall, but I think he played the full 80 for the Seagulls in this one. 72 with a try. It's not, the best score, but hey, it's really, really good, base and throw in attacking stats, which will come for Ben Trebojevic in that, very solid, manly attacking team. So completely fine with that. I also had Tane Tuapiki on the bench, or I put the reserve on, and he scored me 49 in base as well. So that was my main, talking point. Well, the main thing I was really happy about with my team was just how my center wings went. And if I look across the rest of the team, I'm not too disappointed. KP is 50. Sure, it's disappointing, but KP is better than that, and we know he's going to score better than that. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. James Tedesco, my backup fullback, 70. He played a much better game than a 70-point Supercoach game, but a lot of what he didn't reflect in Supercoach stats, unfortunately. But yeah, very happy with the fullbacks, the centre wingers. Jack Bostock maybe is the only one sitting there that, scored 38 with a try, was pretty quiet. But that's all right. Look, there's not too much going on in the centre wing spot. There are some options that we'll sort of talk about when we get into more of the team list stuff and the people who have been named. But for now, we'll just, continue recapping here. Dill Brown, 54. Ethan Strange, who obviously didn't play, 28. These happen. This is fine. The big one, as I said, the talking point of the halfbacks, I went with both guns, or the biggest guns. Nathan Cleary, Nico Hynes, 36 and 26. The lowest scores I've seen from them ever, probably like a long time. So yeah, that was disappointing. But what can you do? As I said, I'm not the only person who went out there and captained Cleary. And if you didn't captain Cleary, you probably captained Hynes, which is even worse, or you captained Ponga, which didn't do too much better. So I'm not too worried about that. The second row, a few ups and downs in the second row. Piakora obviously knocked out in that Vegas game against who'd they play? The Roosters? I think they played the Roosters. Yeah, they did. Disappointing, but what can you do? One of those mid-range options that a lot of us are going to have, a lot of us wanted to own. Yeah, you can't do much about that. It can happen to any player, and you just got to move on. Luckily, because it's obviously first game of the round, this will be the first score to disappear out of his rolling average when price rises come. So not too much to worry about there. I know a lot of people are sort of flocking to sell him. I can't really understand why. Like, you don't know. You can't sell a player based on a 4 score when they played, 4 minutes, if that. Like, he could come out and score 70, 80 on the next game, and you'll be kicking yourselves for selling him. The other second rowers, both for more. 34, did play the 480, which is, he was a sort of late inclusion for me. I was pretty set on Lane until I saw Kelma Talangi on the bench. Fermor was a late switch, brought him in. 34, so I think he scored a bit less than Sean Lane, which is, whatever. But yeah, playing the 80 is a little bit more positive. It's definitely not the best score for someone who played 80, and obviously he has the bye this week, so I won't get any score from him now. But I'm not too disappointed. They were just smashed up by the Dragons. Didn't have any possession in that second half, really, just blown away. So all of that 34 is probably just in tackles. And yeah, I'm pretty confident he can find some attacking stats, especially when the Titans sort of start to click a little bit more in the future. So nothing to really worry about there. Worst comes to worst, I can always sell him to another one of those mid-rangers who might be hitting their straps. The other one in there, Hylam Lukey. Wasn't the best game from him. Pretty sure he scored a try to get himself up to 63. I think he only played about 55, 60 minutes. Not quite sure of that. What's the Finafuiaki? replaced him for a bit there. And I believe he came back on in the middle, obviously. A player that we're going to get to, but Todd Payton sort of stuffed a lot of people around, especially myself, by leaving a certain someone that may be in my front row off the field for the majority of the game. And then, Hylam playing a bit of time in the middle there, which, sure, maybe better for base, but I'm here for the attacking stats, and they didn't come as much as I thought they would. He did score that try, so that one helped bump his score up. The Englishman, Morgan Smithies, absolutely smashed it. 58, purely in base, just runs and tackles. What a weapon. Joe Chan, not the best score. Viliami Fafita, 17. I was always assuming Fafita would drop out after this game, so I'm not too worried about, the low score and the fact that he's not been named. If I need, at that point in time, there weren't many second row and front row cheapies, so I could have gone for a few more risks. I had my boy Sam McIntyre in there for a bit, and sure, I wish I maybe would have kept him, but at the time I was like, look, I'm happy. There's a few too many question marks. I'm happy to go for Fafita. If he keeps his spot, maybe he'll make me some money. And if he doesn't, which I expected, I'm happy to just have that early sort of nuff, especially because he's dual position and I can swap him around here and there. But we'll have to see, a few more cheapies have emerged in this round, which we will get to. So maybe he makes way. I'm not sure. For now, obviously, he's going to stay there. Yeah, Joe Chan, as I touched on, not the best score. And then the shit show, front row. And I imagine I am not the only one who's dealing with this sort of torrid position. You can see there, Jason Tamalolo, Tavita, Totola, my starting front rowers. After watching Totola against whoever they played, Manly, I was pretty set on like, oh shit, I'm probably going to trade him out. The minutes just weren't there as I expected. They ended up running with the 4-forward bench, as has been named again this week. I still think, maybe he can play a few more minutes here and there, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I was pretty set, especially after I saw Terrell May's performance for the Roosters just after that Rabbitohs game. I was set like, yeah, there's a straight swap. I'll just go to Tola to May in a week or two and set and forget. But then the shit house that was Todd Payton and Jason Taumalolo's minutes. Obviously, I went in, and a lot of other super coaches went in thinking Taumalolo, he's got to play a lot more this season, a bigger role in the club, especially with Cohen Hess going down with injury and missing the entire season with the ACL. I, along with everyone else, thought, yeah, more minutes for Taumalolo. He can't go any worse than he did this year. And then Todd Payton played him for 21 minutes to start and left him off the field for the entire rest of the game. No injuries, nothing. Taumalolo came out in the post game and said, yeah, no, I was just kept on ice. There's no injuries, but because we had a bit of a commanding lead, there was no need to risk me. So yeah, just stay on the bench. Sure, that's probably not going to happen every game, but it is just a risk that I'm not here to take. I'm not here to fuck around with Todd Payton and his minutes. It's just, it's annoying. So as you saw at the beginning, but Taumalolo will be my one trade this week. I never like trading after the first round because you always got to give your players a second chance. You can't come in, set in a team. I've picked this team for a reason, and then they come out, one bad game, bang, you sell them off. There's no price rises, anything after one round or even 2 rounds. So give them 2 weeks at least. But Taumalolo, yeah, I'm not here to deal with that Todd Payton minute split. As I said, there's every chance he comes out and averages 60 for the rest of the season because I don't think... Thank you, cars driving past. I don't think, he'll be, rested that much, that often. But I just don't want to deal with it. And... if he is rested again, I think they got Knights this week. Presumably he plays a bit more, but the Knights forward pack was rolled last week, so maybe they don't need him as well. Yeah, as I said, just don't want to deal with it. So he's going to be my trade this week. The cheapies, Farmasili, Sam Hughes. What do you do? There was not many options. Farmasili scored 15, not great. I expect more minutes out of him in round 2, but we'll have to see. Sam Hughes, 31, we'll deal with it. And he will slowly price rise. And then my hookers, Danny Levi, obviously brought him in after showing my, I put the team up on Instagram and put the video up, before Vegas last time. A few changes had to be made, unfortunately. Brendan Hands, who we were planning to run with the entire time, named on the bench, and Ricky didn't go with his 80-minute hooker. Shocked me. So that all changed. That all stuffed up. Danny Levi came in, freed up some cash, scored 45. There was a try involved in that, so it's not the best score, but hey, it's good for price rises. And Brandon Smith, 48. I'm fine with it. He only played about 54 minutes, but I sort of said in my review that I expect Brandon Smith will play a few more minutes. The Roosters were up with a good chunk to go on that game against the Broncos. Yeah, against the Broncos. He was on the sideline at one point looking to come back on, and obviously they just went, nah, we don't need him on there. So I expect, a few more minutes in him in the coming games. 48, essentially most of that in base. Happy with that. And if he does go quiet again, I can flip him on to Jacob Little, who I want to see another week of anyway. Jacob Little was the other one I was debating with in the hooker position during the preseason. I, have a bit of an affinity for Jacob Little after owning him for a period last season in Supercoach. So worst comes to worst, I can almost straight swap. Actually, I think I'll gain a little bit of money by flipping Brandon Smith, the cheese, over to Jacob Little. But yeah, that's sort of just how my team sort of travelled after round one. As I said, there's not too much to worry about. It was dire round one, but it was for everyone. Everyone's going to be struggling with very, very similar situations and predicaments that I am. What can you do? You move on. I'm going to trust in the team. As I said, I will be making the one trade. I'll do it right now on screen. Hang on, that's the wrong player. Tavita Totola, you're staying at least for another week. Jason Tamalolo, you're out. Total points. Terrell May, you're in. And while I'm here, that'll do. You know what? There we go. I think Terrell May, we'll get into the sort of buys and stuff after we go through team lists. I think he's probably one of the most traded in, if he isn't the most traded in. If you're doing it this week, go right ahead. As I said, I don't like trading after round one. But in situations like this, sometimes it has to be done. I'm happy to pull the pin early and get him in. I just don't want to deal with the headache that is Taumalolo. But he will be my one trade. I don't want to spend too many on this. I've still got a lot in the salary cap up here, 119,000, which, can be used. I'll probably use a boost after round two just to sort of get as many cheapies in, as many, just there's going to be a lot of changes that need to be made after round two before all the price rises hit. I'm happy to boost for that. Obviously, we get 5 boosts through the season, so using one early, no worries with that. Yeah, Terrell May comes into my front row for Jason Tamalolo. But we'll move on a bit to sort of the I guess the team list news and sort of everything that's happened there. Got that over on this screen, so you're just going to be seeing me look back and forth a bit. But we start off with the Broncos-Rabbitohs game. And in terms of sort of the ins and outs in this one, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs, he is out. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks at minimum. There is potential that he does miss the entire season with that. I can't even remember the injury, or something to do with his shoulder, I believe. But yeah, there's potential that is a... what is the... rotator cuff? I think it's a rotator cuff injury. Potentially misses the season. We'll have to wait for a few more scans on that to determine the severity. But at minimum, it's 4 to 6 weeks. He's been replaced by Tallis Duncan, popular cheapie for most of the preseason. Everyone was sort of expecting, or at least hoping, that he would get that second row position over Jai Arrow. It didn't happen round one, but here we go. 1 week later, he's come straight into that second row position. 311k or something. Definitely worth having a look at. Obviously, no need to pull the pin early. It's actually even better because we're going to get an extra week to look at him because he didn't play round one. So his price rise won't come until after round 4. So, after round 4. So we can get an extra week to look at him and potentially trade him in. I think it's probably going to be a no-brainer, depending on how his output is in these games. We've got Arrow missing a fair few weeks, and it could be the season. So to get him in for that price rise could be the go, but we'll have to just keep a look at him. But yeah, definitely Tallis Duncan, someone to keep an eye on in these next coming weeks. For the Broncos, Xavier Willison misses selection once again. We sort of all saw this coming. It was very well reported that he was not going to play that Vegas game. And I don't know why, if he's not going to play the Vegas game, they were going to play him for any game after that. So Martin Tapau, keeps his spot. He actually ran on in the Vegas game. He's gone back to the bench for this one with Corey Jensen starting, which is also something we expected. And Brendan Piakura for the Broncos, obviously named again after that HIA that saw him score the 4 points and miss the rest of the game in Vegas. So, as I said, no rush to trade Piakura out. I don't know why you would. Someone who can come out and score a lot of Supercoach points in that Broncos side. They've obviously got South Sydney on the Thursday game, so an early look at them. South Sydney might, they leaked a few points against Manly. Broncos probably out for revenge as well. Revenge, I don't know. They're out to redeem themselves, I suppose, after their Vegas performance. So maybe there's some points there, but also I guess Rabbitohs will equally be out to redeem themselves after their performance as well. But that's about it for the Broncos Rabbitohs. We move on to the Sharkies and Bulldogs. There are absolutely no changes for the Sharks. Royce Hunt and Toby Rudolph actually switched positions, but nothing Supercoach relevant in that. For the Bulldogs, Addo Carr ruled out 2 to 4 weeks with the AC joint injury. He's replaced by Connor Tracy on the wing. Not too much Supercoach relevant once again there. I don't suppose Josh Addo Carr found his way into many teams. It is interesting that Tracy has been named to come onto the wing instead of shifting Kiraz there and playing Tracy in the centres, which I think are both of their actual best positions. But, I guess if you've trained Kiraz at centre all preseason and you want him there, you may as well leave him there. But yeah, not too much relevance there. It's not too long of an injury for Josh Addo Carr. I don't really suppose you're bringing in someone like Connor Tracy, especially with, not that much time to make cash, or pretty sure he's not at the best price point as well, Connor Tracy. So yeah, not too much relevance there. So we move on to the Panthers Eels. Scott Sorensen and Mitch Kenny do return for the Panthers. So Garner drops back to the bench, and Eisenhuth and Luke Summerton drop straight out of the squad. Not much relevance there. If you start with Luke Summerton, you sort of knew he was only in until Mitch Kenny came back. So unless you had strats with that, sure, in which case you're probably not upset at all. There's not too much relevance there. I don't think many people are going Garner or Sorensen or Kenny. So yeah, not too much relevance there. It's interesting to note that Matt Eisenhuth was the one to drop out instead of Liam Henry. So there is, that's pretty good signs that Liam Henry could be a little good shout for a front row cash potential, especially because it's a dire position. Of course, wait one more week. I wouldn't be jumping on him straight away. Give another week. Let's see how our other front rows perform, Farmasili, etc., the likes. And if Liam Henry is the best out of that, you can jump on him for that price rise before round 3. But yeah, that's a good sign for Supercoachers there, and we desperately need that. Front row is as I said, it's a pretty dire position this season, and cheapies in general are pretty thin, so we need to try and get whatever we can out of that, and Liam Henry could prove to be one of the best for that. No changes for the Eels, so we'll move on to the Raiders-Tigers. Obviously, a lot more to note here, as we didn't get a Tigers team for round 1. Obviously, they were on the bye, so we get to see a bit more of their team now. But for the Raiders, Seb Chris is back from suspension, which means Hopewate goes to wing and Nick Kotrick drops out. Sort of expected it to go like this. It was either Kotrick or Savage, and I thought Savage had the better game of the two in round 1. I thought Kotrick was fine, don't get me wrong. He definitely didn't think Kotrick was bad, but people have to make way, and, when Seb Chris is coming back in with a footballer of his quality, it's Nick Kotrick who makes way, unfortunately. And I am really excited that the Raiders have decided to go Seb at centre. I'm sick of them playing him at fullback, to be honest. I'm sure he was fine last year for him. He was pretty good for him last year at fullback, but he's not a fullback and he's a gun centre. So it's good that he's at centre. And Jordan Rapana retains the position at fullback. Not my first choice for fullback either, but they got the job done, so why would you change much? Danny Levi named despite the quad injury. Obviously, if he's named, you'd expect him to play. For the Tigers, Solomone Fatape is named at centre. Justin Olam is a week or two away, so there's not much to note there. Of course, if he keeps that position, if he performs well, maybe Stafford Toa drops out. We'll have to see, but again, don't go early. Don't go. Just have a look at him. He's a bit of a gun. He's got a bit of potential and he's dirt cheap in Supercoach, so If he manages to retain a position for a long period of time, then we'll look at him. But yeah, don't go early. Let's wait until Justin Olam's back. Of course, we get an extra week to look at these Tigers because they didn't play round one. So their price rises won't happen until after all the other teams. So yeah, not much to sort of note about Fatape. Just don't go early. The real sort of money areas, the news coming out of this team is the picks of Lockie Galvin at 5'8" for the Tigers and Jaden Sullivan as the halfback. Aiden Caesar has been named at 14. From a NRL perspective, I hate this. I really do. The Tigers looked abysmal when Aiden Caesar wasn't on the field in the trials. I think Caesar's been brought there to lead the club. He's been brought there to bring stability, and he brought that in the trials. I thought it was their best half by a long shot. And for him to come and get named on the bench, he's 32, 33, not the quickest, not the most explosive athlete. What impact does he bring off the bench? I hate it. I thought Jaden Sullivan was very average across the trials. I thought Lockie Galvin looked good, but he is quite young. But as for a Supercoach perspective, this is big wins for us. Getting Lockie Galvin in that dire 5'8" role, if he keeps that position, again, don't go early. Wait a few weeks. Let's see what happens. If Tigers perform awfully, they could be chopping and changing straight away. But what it allows us to do is bring someone like Lachlan Galvin into our 5'8", and we could potentially drop Ethan Strange down to this wing position. I'm sitting there with Bostock, Torpicki, which I'm sure a lot of the others are sitting with as well. Torpicki, probably his time is limited until Change comes back. We're hoping for a price rise and just a few good scores in between. But after that, maybe we can drop him out, Strange down, and as I said, Galvin into 5'8". The other alternative, or at least for my squad, is Jack Bostock out, just because I'm not convinced on him. I really wasn't in general all preseason, and then somehow I ended up with him. But yeah, the other option is Bostock out, and as I said, the same changes, Strange down and Lachlan Galvin in. The other also thing, I guess, is that Jaden Sullivan is available at 5'8" and halfback, I believe. Not a bad price point. If he's, locked up that halfback spot, there's an option there to bring him in, but I don't know why you'd choose him over Galvin, who is cheaper. And I don't suppose you bring him into a halfback position when you'd sort of be trying to run some gun halves there. As I said, don't go early. Wait a few weeks. Who knows what the Tigers do? As I said, I can't imagine that Caesar is actually locked in for a bench position. He was their best player out of all the halves options during the trials, and he brings the least amount of impact off the bench, in my opinion, while Galvin and Sullivan have a bit more explosiveness. It can bring a bit more impact off the bench. So we'll have to see how that all sort of, changes throughout the next couple of weeks. But, fingers crossed we get to keep Galvin as an actual cheapie, because we need it. Yeah, cheapie is a very dire sort of... So there's not too many knocking about. Obviously, a lot more mid-ranges than they are out and out, bottom dollar cheapies this season. So Galvin could be the one that we really need. So... at least there's good news coming out of that game. But we'll move on. Next is the Cowboys and the Knights. Absolutely no changes for the Cowboys. As for the Knights, Anari Tuwala has gone down injured, so he is out. Replaced by Tom Jenkins. Not really an option. You can sit there and go, that Knights right wing spot was really good last year, and Dom Young was scoring millions of tries. But Tom Jenkins, I think, let's just have a look. I think he's priced at about $600K due to his time at the. You can't even look, can you? Money per point? No. Played 0. Let's just go there. As for audio listeners, you are not getting the best content right now. Thomas Jenkins, 602,800. It's just too much money. I wouldn't be spending that, especially when we don't know if he's going to hold that spot. Every chance when Tuala comes back, he takes it. So not too much relevance in that sort of change for the Knights. Beyond that, Kai Pearce-Paul comes in to replace Dylan Lucas, who obviously he caught that sort of head injury. Pretty bad cut in a HIA, so he's been left out completely for the Knights in this one. Kai Pearce-Paul, there is interest there. Again, don't go early. There's no need. I'm going to repeat it all the time, but unless you have stuffed up a position really, really badly, or somebody's gone down injured for like a long period of time or suspended in the case of like Spencer Leniu and Jai Arrow, there is no need to be making trades after 1 week. So all of these players, don't just give them some time. Let's have a look. But in saying that, Kaipi's poor. There will be some interest, 300 and something K. If he holds down that second row spot, there's a lot of quality about him, and he could prove to be a really good cash cow, and maybe even a borderline keeper, or at least score good points. Someone that you can play consistently in your second row potentially. But who knows? As I said, Dylan Lucas could come back straight after this injury, come back in, and I don't think he'll be out for very long. They obviously chose him to start there for round 1, which means he'd probably deserve that position. And after one injury game, you wouldn't expect him to just drop straight out and play off the bench or even in reserve grades. So don't go early, but there is some interest in Kai Pearce-Paul. And of course, Jed Cartwright sort of comes onto the bench there. Someone that a few people sort of went as that nuff. He is second row centre wing eligible to my knowledge, and he's about that 238K, I think. Pretty cheap. Yeah, no relevance in terms of Supercoach. If you went him as enough, you've stuffed yourself over because now you've got an AE nightmare. It's not going to score you many points, Jed Cartwright. So tough luck to you. You don't have my sympathy, unfortunately. Moving on, though, we have the Storm and the Warriors. For the Storm, Munster and Nelson Asofa-Solomona are still missing. Neither have been named. There's not too much relevance in Nas missing, but if anybody went, I doubt many people went Munster knowing he was missing round 1. And I think they have that early buy in about round 4 or 5. So it's not bad. It means when Munster comes back, people can look at him, coming back into the season. But everybody sort of saw, or how I said is I wanted Munster. I was really keen on Munster. Obviously had to change that after he was ruled out. I've got Dill Brown in the team instead, which I'm happy for. Dill Brown's still a gun. As I said, I thought he'd be the top averaging 5/8 for the season, so not bad there. For the Warriors, Wade Egan, Kurt Capewell have actually been named despite their injuries in the last game. I suspect Capewell will play, but I doubt Wade Egan plays. I think he'll miss a few weeks with that elbow injury. They're looking at cartilage damage, etc. Yeah, I doubt he plays despite being named, which means Freddie Lussick will come onto that bench, and I assume Jazz Tavanga will replace Freddie on the bench, and Wade will drop out of the team. But yeah, it's a shame because Wade Egan looked really good in the time he was on the field in round 1, and it's a shame for those who went him as a pod option because he could have been a really good pick considering that hooker's not the best position this season as well. So unlucky for you guys, but maybe he plays and you get a little bit of a win there, but I do doubt it, unfortunately. We move on to the Seagulls and the Roosters. Seagulls, Jason Saab, he has been ruled out for 6 weeks with the hamstring injury. Could be more. Hamstring injuries are pretty hard. It was a tear, I believe. It wasn't just a strain. I'm not sure. But he's replaced by Tommy Talau. There is some interest there. Tommy Talau's at a decent price point on the right wing of Manly, who are scoring points. Probably scores a few tries, gets you a few points. There's potential in him. Once again, we wait. You don't jump on him early, and we just see how that sort of plays out. For the Roosters, Dom Young has been named for his debut for the Roosters. Junior Ponga makes way, and Spencer Leniu obviously drops out due to suspension. He's out for 8 weeks with that racial slur, which is, we won't comment too much further on here. I've spoke about it on the other, just NRL podcasts. We don't want to see that in our game. I think 8 weeks, it's a fine suspension. I think that's sort of whereabouts it should have landed for him. But yeah, he's replaced straight away by JWH, who returns from suspension. Coincidentally, he goes straight into that run on side and replaces Spencer Leniu. Not too much to note for JWH. I don't suspect people are picking him. And yeah, tough luck if you do have Spencer Leniu. That's a trade. And, I say don't do too many trades after round 1. Spencer Leniu is the exception to that rule. I think if you have him, you got to get rid of him. Luckily, if you don't have Terrell May and you do have Spencer, find a way to get to Terrell May. He's the pick of the bunch at front row at the moment. But that's sort of it for the Roosters, Seagulls. Dolphins, Dragons. There are mass changes for the Dolphins. Jake Averillo has replaced Tessie New in the centres, who has been dropped. Isaiah Katoa is also in for Sean O'Sullivan, who is also dropped. Ewan Aitken replaces Lemuelu, who's set to miss 4 weeks with the knee injury. Max Plath comes into the run on side at lock. Ray Stone out with concussion. So, yeah, lots of stuff there. In terms of relevance for Supercoach, I don't know if many people owned Tessie New or Sean O'Sullivan. Lemuelu, maybe a couple of people owned, but not sure. It's not too much. If you went Ray Stone as a bit of a pod option, either at hooker or second row where you could have had him, it's kicking the dick for you. It is only concussion, so he probably comes back the week after, but I do think Dolphins have the bye the week after anyway, so you miss a couple of weeks with him. Wouldn't be jumping on Max Plath either, just for those same reasons. For the Dragons, however, Blake Laurie and Luciano Leilua come in, and Murdoch, Masilla and Viliami Fafita make way. This was expected. If you went Viliami Fafita, like myself, I think you have to go in knowing that he wasn't going to get selected the next week. We knew Luciano Leilua was suspended and he was going to come in. I always expected Viliami was going to be the one to drop off that bench. And if you didn't, that's tough luck to you. You're in a bit of a pickle with enough there. As I said, I'm fine with running enough, but we'll see if that sort of changes. I might change my mind. But for now, I'm happy with that decision. Well, I'm fine with the decision. I wouldn't say I'm the happiest with how it's all played out, but I'm all okay for that. And Laurie comes back in, obviously. So, again, not too much relevance there. I don't think there's too many Dragons players that have been picked in Supercoach sides. I've got a lot of a minute share across that forward pack. Tough to really know what's happening there. And that sort of concludes all the Team List Tuesday news. So if we were to look at trades, as I said, I wouldn't be trading after round 1 unless you have problems like Jai Arrow, Spencer Leniu. If you somehow had both of those, you're in a tough spot in your front row. Definitely trade them if you have them. You might have to use the 2 trades in round 1. You might even have to boost. It's a tough gig, but Supercoach does that to you. Besides that, I wouldn't look to trade anyone unless, as you said, you've stuffed up direly in a position, or just somebody's got injured or whatnot. But if we scroll down here, we can see the most traded out and most traded in just in my team. Zach Labert, obviously. I think Terrell May is the most traded in, but obviously I've just brought him in, so it doesn't show that. I'm fine with Terrell May being brought into sides. As I said, I've done it. Everyone sort of should, especially if you've got those 2 issues that I just mentioned in Arrow and Leniu. In terms of these most traded out over here, 3%. They're not too much traded out percentage-wise. I think a lot of people are doing a similar thing. RTS, almost 1% of owners of RTS are trading him out. Jesus. Yeah, nothing to worry about. I wouldn't be making trades. So if you had to, the only person that I'd say get in or is like almost a must is Terrell May. Most of the time you can have another look. If you have, even if in my position, so I'm sitting there with Totola and had Taumalolo. In my position, you could definitely wait another week. Like, as I said, I doubt Taumalolo's minutes are going to stay that low. I expect him to bump up in most games. He's not going to get given that much of a rest in every game. So you can definitely wait another week. Obviously, you're not losing price drops or anything. But I don't want to deal with it, so I'm jumping a week early. Plus, I'll probably want to boost next week. And if one of those trades has to be Taumalolo to May, then it's just, I don't get to get as many people in. So I'm happy to do it this week, but you don't need to. So there's not really anything trade-wise. Obviously, trades will become a lot more important next week, weeks beyond. So we'll talk a lot more about that in depth. But this week, I can't imagine there's not many people you sort of want to be trading in unless you've stuffed up completely. As I said, myself, there's a few issues or just questionable things in my side, but I'm happy enough with how it's all played out. I'm just making that one trade and I'm leaving it there. So we'll move on from that. If you want any more actual questions about it, as I said, find me on the Instagram page. Ask me a few questions. Send me a DM. Comment on all my posts. Just whatever you want. But just for the podcast value and what I'm saying on this video, it's not much. And I don't think people should be rushing to do that. Don't rush. You've set up your entire preseason to get this team. you can't be rushing to get people out of it after 1 week. Give them some time, give them 2 weeks, see how they go. Things might change and you might be happy. And if you make a trade and they come out the next week and they kill it, then you're going to be kicking yourself. You'll regret that. So be patient, guys. In terms of captains for next week, this week, I suppose, another difficult one, especially with, we don't really know how sides are just going to be going because it was a bit of a shit show, really. I'm looking at, let's do it live here. Let's put the VC on Hynes. He plays that Friday game against the Bulldogs. I like that. If you wanted to pull the trigger and go just straight captain, I don't mind that as well. I'm going to be a little bit more reserved and just put the VC on him. I'm going to put the captain on Kalen Ponga. Excuse me. The versus the Cowboys, so tough there. But who knows? Yeah, there's not too much standout in this one. A lot of tough games once again. It's going to be a tough competition, which I love. It means there's not going to be many standout options across the year. I don't really want to do Cleary against the Eels. Eels seem to get up for that in saying that I don't want to do Dylan Brown, another one of my big guns against the Panthers because it's the Panthers. So, you're looking around the squad. I'm sitting here like, maybe Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. They versus the Storm. I don't want to do that. So there's not many out there. I doubt many people have a Dolphins or Dragons player that they want to captain. So if you're looking at your guns, your Pongers, your Clearys, your Hynes, your Trebojevic, definitely they're the way to go. But there's not the best matchups on either of them. Even if I don't own Trebojevic, but Manly have the Roosters. Are you confident enough to put the C on Trebojevic in that one? If I had him, I probably would do it as my C over Kalen Ponga. But I don't have him. So, as I said, you can see it right here. If you can't, you can hear it. I'm putting the VC on Nicho Hynes against the Bulldogs. I think that is the best matchup of the round, just in general. I think every game will be a close one. I think Sharks might put a number on the Bulldogs again. I don't rate the Bulldogs. I'm sorry, guys. And, Sharks might even be willing to just go on with what they did. It was obviously a very gritty performance. I think they're going to be out to now prove they've still got that attack, and Nicho Hynes gets attacking stats. The fact he didn't against the Warriors is mind-blowing. So I wouldn't begrudge anyone for putting the straight C on him. The more I think about it, the more I'm actually, sort of closer to doing so. Definitely the best captain choice of the week, in my opinion, but he also plays in Friday. So if that stuff's up, can ruin the rest of your week. If you have a poor captain, I know it ruins my week if I stuff it up early and I sit there like, well, it doesn't matter because my captain's gone shit. Did a few times last year with Valentine Holmes, and he'd love to get suspended whenever I captained him, unfortunately. But yeah, other than that, Kalen Ponga, it's not a bad shout against the Cowboys. Who knows how they go. Newey might have to redeem themselves. But Kalen Ponga, he can find stats wherever. Ooh, no, don't worry. I was looking at something else, which wouldn't have made sense anyway. Beyond that, yeah, captains are hard. Trust your gut, guys. I think that's the biggest thing with this season. I think it's the biggest thing in Supercoach in general. If you're looking to bring a player in or start with a player or captain a player, if you have a gut feel about them, just do it. Follow that. You can watch as many podcasts and content creators out there, but you need to trust your gut. There's no point copying your team off everyone else. They can give you advice. People can give you advice, do this, do that. And, take a lot of that advice. Sure, the people who do this stuff are high-ranking people and they have been doing it for a long time and they know their stuff. Definitely, take their advice in a lot of areas. But if you disagree with something that they say, don't just fold. Don't just go, okay, they must be right because they know more than me. No, trust your gut. I've got Jesse Ramian in my squad. Nobody owns Jesse Ramian except me, essentially. I've trusted that gut, and I'm going to stick with that for a while. So, if there's a captain option, that might stand out to you that nobody else is going to do it. The early weeks of the season, the early rounds of the season, it's not dire. It's not that important. It's a lot of it is finding your feet, getting cheapies, and, fixing the structure of your squad for the season to come. So you can take a few gambles on captains here and there, and they might pay off and skyrocket you. And if they don't, oh well, you're not that far behind because it's a long season. You can make up those points. So yeah, just trust your gut in that. That's the best advice I can sort of give you in regards to captains and just in regards to how you just play with your team in general. But beyond that, I guess there's not too much more to touch on. So we'll have to leave it there. Obviously, as I said, a lot more content will be coming on the Instagram. I think at the moment, the Instagram's, it's been slow, but I'm going to try and work out a format, a bit of a structure for how I want to do posts. A lot of it will be Supercoach. I think Supercoach is the best way to just connect with people, and I think it's what everybody's looking for. I do so many podcasts each week, everything NRL based, everything footy based, and only a few here and there of Supercoach. So a lot of Supercoach content will be on the Instagram. So go on there if you want to ask any more questions, or if I've missed something and you just want to know something more, flick me a DM, comment on the posts, just get amongst all of that. But for now, that one will wrap up this sort of podcast. So I will I'll quickly do it here. Bo Fermor is obviously out, so he's not playing. Morgan Smith has come in, and I'll put the reserve on. Let's put it on Jesse Arthurs. There we go. Not that makes a difference to your teams unless you're doing the exact same move that I just did. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning into this one. As I said, if you guys were listening on audio and you want to see that visual stuff, there's not too much to look at. I mean, I'm just really looking at my team on the Supercoach thing. But you got the podcast here. You can see me, maybe connect with me a little bit better. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.